Hi everyone, my name is Samantha. I am a graduate student in the College Counseling and Student Development Program, and then I'm also a co-advisor for Active Minds.
My name is Aaron Sadlow. I am a senior Spanish and psychology major. I'm also the secretary of Active Minds.
Hello, my name is Charlene Hanisch-Tyson. I'm a therapist on the campus here at Counseling and Psychological Services. I'm also the advisor of Active Minds. And Active Minds has been running, this is our 10th year. So happy anniversary to Active Minds.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alexis. I am a second-year clinical mental health graduate student, and I am the president of Active Minds. Thanks for listening to the Mental Health Mondays podcast. Today, we will be talking about living with roommates. With winter break coming up and COVID restrictions being put in place, we thought it would be a good idea to discuss ways we can navigate living with roommates. So starting off, those of you who'd like to share, what has been your experience with roommates?
I'm someone in the minority boat here where I have lived at home my whole life. So my only experience with roommates has been growing up with siblings. So it's been a bit much of a more personal level where you kind of pick and choose your battles, especially changing from everyone being gone at the same time to being home a bit more often because of COVID. While at the same time, it's just a bunch of changes. All my siblings that I live with are younger than me, so I've had to just get their license during the pandemic. So it's been a lot of change in who's home and like diverting responsibility between various chores, especially with upkeep of pets. So there's just been a lot of challenges, I'd say, navigating through it, navigating how you share responsibilities around the place.
And then my roommate situation is a little bit like Aaron's with like a twist. But so at the beginning of this year, I lived with my family and me and my sister. So my house, it's an odd house where there is like a loft up in the upstairs, and it's really big. So me and my sister just kind of turn it into our bedroom. But we call ourselves roommates, and we like never see anyone else in the house. But so I lived with my sister in our house with our family for the first part of this year, and then when I came to grad school, I had a roommate that I found, and we like don't know each other. It's just a random roommate, and it's been very interesting to navigate that roommate situation versus my sister. But personality wise, my roommate now and my sister are pretty similar, so like thinking of it that way, there hasn't been much of a change, but it's just been very interesting to live with like a random roommate. And the previous roommates I've had, I've always known them. So
for me, so because I'm a little older than all of you, so I'm married and grown children out of the home, but we do have one adult child still living at home. So I can speak about I identify we're family, but we're also housemates, and so during this time of the pandemic, it's been challenging because we are home more often than we typically usually would be, and at times, there's increased stress, agitation. We all have our own plates that we're trying to spin, and so one of the things that we do is we have family meetings. We just periodically, anyone can just call a family meeting if they have a concern or if they have anything that they want to share that's exciting. That they want to celebrate. It's just, that's our communication style. As soon as someone says family meeting, we just stop what we're doing and or family meeting in 5 minutes. And the person who calls the family meeting identifies where that is going to be at. And sometimes it's in a bedroom, sometimes it's in the living room, or sometimes it's in the kitchen. And so we all come to that meeting, that experience with an open heart, with an open mind, and looking at resolution. So we certainly, if it's a problem, we identify the issue. You can tell I'm a therapist. We use I feel statements, and we try not to blame or shame, and that we just really own our feelings and own our concern. And then as a family, we go immediately into problem solving. So that's been really helpful in the pandemic. We also have been allowing ourselves permission to have to be human and just have some grace. And what I mean by grace is not necessarily in a religious frame of reference, but more of understanding and like if someone leaves a dish or eats the last something and doesn't replace it, it's just try not to get too upset, try not to just kind of let it roll, or at least express something with grace and style and compassion. I guess compassion would be a really a good way. Don't sweat the small stuff unless they become big, unless it's becoming bigger. Sometimes the small stuff we do need to address, or it will get bigger. But if they're minor eye rolls, we'll just, we just let them go. I'm also thinking about back when I was in college, I had at one point 15 roommates, and that was a challenge to navigate. I'm thinking about the qualities of the roommates that I had. They were, I guess, a theme of the quality roommates that I had were they were respectful, they were direct, they were fun, they were responsible, they respected boundaries. The ones who I really struggled with didn't pay their bills, ate my food, and used my stuff without permission, and didn't do their dishes or clean up after themselves. And so those are the behaviors of roommates that didn't necessarily demonstrate quality roommate behaviors. And one point when I had a roommate who kept eating my cereal, I put a note in my cereal box and just said, "Don't even think of it." And that stopped, So use a little humor, and so I just found ways to address it in fun ways. But then other times I needed to be really, really assertive and just say that that's not okay. And please respect my stuff as I'm respecting yours. Also safety. We always had to we had an agreement that we don't give a key to anyone, our friends, because this is a shared living space. And we don't invite anybody over that's not trustworthy. Particularly, we were, a house full of 15 women, and that can be really scary if we were to allow someone over that we didn't really know. So I guess that would be my input at this point about roommates.
Thank you for sharing, Charlene. I think through each of those examples that you shared, the key points of those were empathic listening and also clear communication. I also really liked your idea of the family meeting. It sounds like you all have a mutual understanding of this is important and we got to put things aside to be able to talk about what we're going through. Erin and Sam, do you guys have ways of managing those kinds of conflicts? I know you had all mentioned some challenges and some interesting experiences.
Yeah, so one method I used with one of my previous roommates were we actually both had experience in residential life, so we kind of took this from working in residential life, but we had like a verbal roommate contract, so kind of what Charlene does with her family with the family meeting, and nothing was ever written down, but we had like a verbal contract with each other where some of the things we had in our verbal contract was that if we had anyone come over to the apartment during the daytime, we can just bring them, but if they ever sleep over or here for the night for a longer period of time, we would text and let each other know. And then it was also kind of for a safety thing. If we ever weren't going to be home at night, we would always let each other know as well. And then something else that kind of came out from that contract was we had a calendar that the both of us used, so we would write down when we weren't, And then when we had classes, and also when we were like not going to be in the apartment at all, just so we know where the other person was at all times. So if we were like wondering where the other person was like on a Saturday night, we could like look it up in the calendar just to double check. And I found that the calendar method and just having a contract, even if it's a verbal one, was very helpful. And kind of depending on your roommate situation, like even having a written one might even be better, but just with the relationship I had with this person, a verbal one worked really well for us.
Yeah, and then obviously growing up with siblings, it wasn't always a very healthy kind of way. It would be normally one-on-one disputes and it'd boil over, but then it would eventually get better. But since I'm going to be moving in to my first apartment with two friends who are my age, who I've known for years, we've been working to establish those kind of boundaries where we just make sure there are easy flows of communication. Because really, like, the biggest thing when it comes to like either avoiding or dissolving conflict is that communication aspect, where if you let it bubble and you just talk behind people's backs, it'll just bubble and get worse and exponentially increase. But if you just sit down and talk about it, kind of like Charlene was saying with those like family meetings, it can really just begin to dissolve and you can work to eliminate it. And it's just a really easy, healthy way to do it.
So in those cases where maybe communication isn't as efficient as you'd like it to be, what are some personal things you do to de-stress from some of those conflicts?
Personally, that's when I take a drive and just listen to music. If I'm ever struggling with anything, I'll just need that time to breathe and be by myself until I can relax and start to calm. Like finding your own space whenever you can is just always a really good thing. And if you're inside the apartment, then you can just make it known that you need your own space and that you just need your own time to just de-stress, and hopefully that your roommates will understand you.
For me, I use exercise. I'm a runner. I'm a slow but sure runner. And so that I love to rollerblade. I love to run. I love to do yoga. And that's my stress reliever, as well as I have skills in being an extrovert, but I really prefer to be an introvert. That's where I recharge. That's where I get my energy. And so by being by myself, even if it's 5 minutes, that really is very helpful, just honoring that alone time.
Yeah, I'd agree with both what Erin and Charlene said, kind of just having that alone time. What I really like to do is just taking like a nice long bath. I find that is very helpful. And then just kind of like de-stressing and watching Netflix, just like kind of allowing myself to kind of forget the current situation until I calm down and then go back into it.
You all emphasize like needing that alone time and knowing when to step away from a conflict. Our next question is, what makes a good roommate?
I think the number one thing that makes a good roommate is just being able to respect the other person's boundaries or what they want in their living situation. So an example I can give is, so I am an early bird, which means sometimes I like to go to sleep really early, and that doesn't always work out with roommates. So kind of figuring that situation out is always a little bit tricky. But I think being a respectful roommate is me understanding in the morning when I wake up super early that I have to kind of keep it on the lower quiet side and not being obsessively loud. And then kind of my roommate respecting that, and at night when they're awake, they aren't being obsessively loud.
And I guess kind of like I touched on earlier, community is just the biggest number one for me, where if you're always able to hear that you're on the same page of things, like it'll be pretty easy to get through life. And generally like that compassion, like if they're able to just know when you're feeling down or when you're going through that kind of stuff, that you're able to talk about it and able to respect each other's space and how they want to address it, I suppose.
I think for me, if I think back to my roommate years, as well as it fits with my family, pick up after yourself. You know, don't expect someone to do it for you. your mother's not here, you know, so you need to be responsible for your own stuff. Don't expect anyone else or everyone else to have to live within your mess or your stuff. So I think that is a basic respect. So, you know, clean your dishes, help with shared chores, help with purchasing shared items, as well as don't use or take things that don't belong to you without permission. Those items, you know, can really be, the daily grind can really influence and impact a relationship, and it can cause a lot of animosity, a lot of resentment, and just feel disrespected. And of course, communication and respectful communication is key.
I think you all bring up really good points of just being mindful and having accountability for yourself, being responsible. My last question for you all is, what does it mean to have a good relationship with your roommate? What does that feel like?
So even though I touched on that, like, explicit communication, I think once you grow with your roommate to the point where you have that kind of underlying, like, almost telekinetic communication where they just, you know, each other based on nonverbal cues and just what's going on. You get to have that kind of riding a bike sort of mentality where you get accustomed to each other's habits and you work around them and work with them. Like, once you get to that point where you can not have to really think about what you're doing with your roommate and how you work around life in that aspect, it just gets way easier.
Now, I think about the students who come to me as clients, and they have roommate issues. I think it's really hard when there's a falling out and you have to still live with each other. And oftentimes there's a falling out and it's not even really clear why. And so to have that tension, I think about, for me, in every place I've lived throughout my life, my home's my sanctuary. Whether that's your bedroom, whether that's your entire house, it's your soft place to land. And so sometimes the world can get really cruel. It can get overwhelming. It's stressful, but your home is your home. It's where you lay your head, and you are the most vulnerable and the most hopefully at peace and to be yourself. And so when you have a roommate or a living situation that is either toxic or argumentative, or just there's screaming silence, that is so difficult to live in. And so if anyone is living in that setting or that situation and there's no resolution or improvement, to try to remove yourself from that situation as quickly as possible. And I know leases last forever, and the financial commitment is something that you're facing, but finding a way to remove yourself from that situation, or try to improve it if you are creating some of it. So just finding, just that your home is a soft place to land, and really be committed to those relationships that you're living with, because they're important.
Yeah, I would say, kind of going off what Charlene said, like, your home is your safe place. And I've had roommates where it's like, I haven't felt that has been my safe place, just because I had a bad relationship with my roommates, or we just weren't on the same page. And like, there's nothing worse than like coming home and not feeling comfortable in your space. So I think that is something that's really important.
During this pandemic, I know that there's a lot of hysteria and fear about contracting COVID from a roommate, and so to have a conversation about that, like if someone is on an athletic team and they have to be around their team unmasked, or if you're at a job and you're in the community more often and someone's trying to self-quarantine and protect themselves, to have those conversations about When you come into your, into your shared space, what do you need? What are your expectations? What are your rules? I know for me, I help run a business. We are masked 100% of the time because we all have, at some level, some contact with the community. I even in my home, I have two people who, one person works with children, the other one works in a grocery store every day. So I'm masked to protect, so I'm not bringing this into my office or into other areas. So those are important conversations to have. Good relationships have ended because of the fear of COVID, unfortunately. And so to prevent that is really important.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. Charlene, before we depart here, would you mind sharing some resources we have on campus that could help with some roommate conflict?
Yes, absolutely. So the housing center is open. I think it's Christmas Day and Christmas Day and New Year's Day we're not open. Other than that, we are taking clients. We receive students from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So you may call our front desk. Phone number is 320-308-3171, and you can just ask for an appointment. Also, we have a graduate trainee who is in the Marriage and Family graduate program. She is one of our wonderful preparing clinicians in our office, and she specializes in family support and relational counseling. And so if you have a conflict with a roommate, a partner, a family, please give us a call and you could get in to see her. I have to say, because she's a student, she's taking a break. And so she is not taking clients during the winter break, but absolutely once we return, she is. And so, so she would be a great resource for that. We are doing all of our sessions through telehealth, through the mode of Zoom. We also take crisis walk-ins if anyone is feeling suicidal or feeling just emotionally distraught that's affecting all aspects of their life. You're welcome to walk in or give us a call and we could see you immediately.
Thank you, Charlene. I think that's a wrap. Mental Health Mondays will continue in January. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.